eu quero, em primeiro lugar,
I would like, first of all, to say to the Brazilian press and to our guests how happy I am to be participating in this event in which Brazil receives as head of state the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It is very important that people understand that a mega-diverse country like Brazil has the obligation to have political, cultural, economic, and commercial relations with another mega-diverse country like India, giving the utmost importance to the significance that India holds, not only for being a country of 1.4 billion inhabitants, but for being a democratic country, a country that works for peace, and a country I came to admire even more after reading a novel by two journalists. You know? That told the story of Gandhi. The book, I believe, was Freedom at Midnight. It was an extraordinary book that made me learn a bit about the history of India, made me understand how important the culture of peace is, how important the culture of nonviolence is. And unfortunately, we are seeing these teachings that Gandhi passed on to humanity being thrown away, because today the world is experiencing a period of conflict, possibly even greater than before the Second World War. The world is spending on weapons what it is not willing to spend on food, what it is not willing to spend on fighting the inequality of peoples, racial inequality, gender inequality, food inequality, inequality in education, inequality in health, and even inequality in the choice of the cradle in which one is born, because unfortunately there is no explanation for the fact that the world, with all the genetic and technological knowledge it has, with the amount of food it produces, still has 730 million people who go to bed every night without having anything to eat. It is very, very serious that the world, which has not yet fulfilled its commitments to provide the necessary resources so that we can prevent the climate disasters that are happening, has so much money to invest in war, as last year, when the world spent 2.7 trillion on weapons and spent almost nothing to take care of the climate. It is with this joy that I can say that besides Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I am here with my dear companion Dilma Rousseff, who today is not here as a former president, not here as a native of Minas Gerais, not here as a native of Rio Grande do Sul, but as the president of the New Development Bank, our dear NDB, which is a bank that emerged to give the world the certainty that it is possible to have a financial system that has a financing policy and does not have as its main objective austerity against those who take out loans, but has the kindness to understand that people cannot take out loans to sink their countries, but rather to save them. Thank you for your presence, companion Dilma. Thank you, Brazilian ministers. Thank you, ministers and members of the Indian delegation. And thank you to the members of the Brazilian and Indian press. It is a great pleasure to receive this person whom I no longer treat as just a prime minister, but as my friend, the Prime Minister of India, companion Modi, from two superlative countries like India and Brazil. Sincerely, two superlative countries like India and Brazil cannot remain distant. The solidity of our democracies, the diversity of our cultures, and the strength of our economies attract us. I was at the forefront of the celebration of the Brazil-India Strategic Partnership in 2006. Much has changed since then. The threats to peace, prosperity, and the planet have increased.
Não está aqui como gaúcha, ela está aqui como presidenta do novo Banco dos BRICS, o novo querido NB, que é banco que surgiu para dar ao mundo a certeza de que é possível ter no mundo sistema financeiro que tenha política de financiamento em que não tenha como objetivo principal a austeridade contra aqueles que pedem empréstimos, mas que tenha a bondade de entender que as pessoas não podem pegar o empréstimo para afundar os países, mas sim para salvar os países. Obrigado pela presença, companheira Dilma. Obrigado, ministros brasileiros. Obrigado, ministros e companheiros da delegação indiana. E obrigado, os companheiros da imprensa brasileira e da imprensa indiana. É uma enorme satisfação receber esse, que eu nem trato mais de primeiro-ministro, eu trato de meu amigo primeiro-ministro da Índia, companheiro Modi. Dos países superlativos como a Índia e o Brasil, não pode, sinceramente, dois países superlativos como a Índia e o Brasil não podem permanecer distantes. A solidez das nossas democracias, a diversidade das nossas culturas.
I reiterated to the minister my condolences for the recent attack in Kashmir, reaffirming our repudiation of all forms of terrorism. The negotiation of a ceasefire between India and Pakistan is an example of wisdom for the world. As members of the G20 and BRICS, we act in defense of multilateralism for more inclusive global governance. Prime Minister Modi correctly stated at the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro that it is impossible to run 21st-century software on 20th-century typewriters. It is unacceptable that countries the size of India and Brazil do not have permanent seats on the UN Security Council. We are natural allies in responding to one of the greatest challenges of our time, the eradication of hunger and poverty and the fight against climate change. I thanked Prime Minister Modi for India's participation in the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Our livestock owes much to India. 90% of the Brazilian zebu herd is the result of 60 years of intense bilateral cooperation in genetic improvement. The Prime Minister's home state, Gujarat, is where these breeds come from. The agreement between Embrapa and the Indian Council of Agricultural Research will stimulate innovation projects in food production. We will arrive at COP30 as leaders of a just energy transition. We will show that it is possible to combine the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions with economic growth and social inclusion. In August, Brazil and the UN will hold in New Delhi the second round of the global stocktake to mobilize civil society worldwide in preparation for COP30. India's candidacy to host COP33 strengthens the leadership of emerging countries in addressing climate change. Brazil and India can be the engines of a new development model based on clean energy. We are already partners in the Global Biofuels Alliance launched under India's G20 presidency. India is the fastest-growing biofuel market in the world. Brazil has set a goal to increase the ethanol blend in gasoline to 20% and the biodiesel blend in diesel to 5%. Brazil has half a century of experience with biofuels and is a pioneer in flex fuel engines. We already add 30% ethanol to gasoline and 15% biodiesel to diesel.
Que é possível aliar redução das emissões de gás de efeito estufa e crescimento econômico e inclusão social. Em agosto, o Brasil e a ONU realizarão em Nova Delhi a segunda rodada de balanço ético global para mobilizar a sociedade civil de todo o mundo em preparação à COP30. A candidatura da Índia para sediar a COP33 fortalece o protagonismo dos países emergentes no enfrentamento à mudança do clima. Brasil e Índia podem ser os motores de um novo modelo de desenvolvimento baseado em energias limpas. Já somos parceiros da Aliança Global para Biocombustíveis lançada na presidência indiana do G20. A Índia é o mercado de bioenergia que mais cresce no mundo. O Brasil estabeleceu como meta ampliar para 20% a mistura de etanol na gasolina e para 5% a proporção de biodiesel no óleo diesel. O Brasil tem meio século de experiência com biocombustíveis e é pioneira no motores flex. Já adicionamos 30% de etanol à gasolina e 15% de biodiesel ao diesel. Convidei a Índia a se somar ao Fundo Floresta Tropicais para Sempre, que vai remunerar países que preservem suas florestas. O futuro da nossa relação também se assentará em dois outros importantes pilares: desenvolvimento tecnológico e defesa. As políticas indianas de infraestrutura pública digitais, baseadas em dados, códigos e modelos abertos,
I invited India to join the Tropical Forests Forever Fund, which will reward countries that preserve their forests. The future of our relationship will also be based on two other important pillars: technological development and defense. Indian public digital infrastructure policies, based on open data, code, and models, contrast with the concentration dynamics of private companies. We want to create with India a center of excellence to bring this potential to Brazil. We are interested in collaborating in the development and production of vaccines and medicines to strengthen Brazil's health industrial complex. With its missions to the moon, India has established itself as an example of success in space exploration. We had Indian support for the launch of Amazonia 1, the first satellite designed and operated entirely by Brazil. In an increasingly polarized world, the search for autonomy brings our defense policies closer. The three commanders of the Brazilian armed forces have visited India. Since the beginning of my government, I expressed to Prime Minister Modi the willingness of Embraer to consolidate its presence in India in partnership with local companies. With technology transfer and professional training, Embraer's planes can help the country realize the UDAN plan so that everyone can fly. Today we signed an agreement on combating terrorism and transnational organized crime that will expand our cooperation. As part of this effort, the Federal Police will open an attaché office in New Delhi. The deepening of our partnership also depends on strengthening economic relations. Our trade flow of $12 billion is not up to the level of our economies. When I was in India 20 years ago, we aimed to reach $15 billion. We are determined to accelerate this goal, tripling this value in the short term. Since the G20 summit in New Delhi in September 2023, more than 70 Brazilian trade and investment promotion missions have gone to India. In the same period, we received 40 Indian technical visits here. The business council we created during this visit will multiply channels between entrepreneurs and connections between production chains. I thanked Prime Minister Modi for the recent opening of the Indian market to Brazilian chicken and cotton. The expansion of the Mercosur-India agreement can help reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers that still hinder our trade. Currently, only 14% of Brazilian exports to India are covered by the agreement. Dear friend Modi, in a month Raksha Bandhan will be celebrated, an Indian tradition that celebrates the bond between siblings. May the symbol of this festival inspire us to deepen the ties we are building today. My dear friend Modi, Brazilian friends, and Indian friends, I want to tell you that in this troubled world today, India and Brazil present themselves as two countries that symbolize peace in the world. We believe that the world does not need war, the world needs respect. Each country must respect the territorial integrity of the other. That is why we condemn the invasion of Russia into Ukraine. That is why we do not agree with what is happening to the Palestinian people, although each of us respects the decisions of the other country. What is most important is that Brazil and India have extraordinary potential, and for this reason we claim the right to participate in the UN Security Council. It is no longer possible to see the UN weakened, the UN not being taken into consideration, and the permanent members of the Security Council, who should be the first to promote peace, are exactly those who most encourage war. It was so in the Iraq War, it was so in the invasion of Libya, it was so in Ukraine, and it is so in many other countries. Therefore, peace will guide the relationship between Brazil and India, peace, development, and the fight against inequality. That is why we do not accept any complaints against the BRICS meeting. That is why we do not agree when yesterday the President of the United States suggested taxing BRICS countries. Well, if I started my speech by saying that I began to like India more after reading a book called Freedom at Midnight, which told the story of Gandhi's struggle for non-violence, it means that today, at 80 years old, I am even more of a pacifist than I was back then. And we do not want war. We do not want conflict. What we want is for our countries to progress. That is why we also want to tell the world that we are sovereign countries. We do not accept interference from anyone in our sovereign decisions. just as we take care of our people and we defend multilateralism because it was the system that, after the Second World War, allowed the world to reach a state of harmony that is being deformed today with the rise of extremism. Today's meeting will symbolize the strengthening of the India-Brazil relationship. These are not just any two countries. They are two large countries, two countries that respect each other, and two countries that want peace and simply want to improve the quality of life of the Indian and Brazilian people. And so we want to share what we know how to do with the Indian people, and we want Prime Minister Modi to share with Brazil what they do better than us. Because only then will our economies grow, and only then can we tell the world that we do not want a second Cold War. We want free trade, we want multilateralism, we want more democracy, and we want more respect for the sovereignty of our countries.
Do Gandhi significa que hoje, aos 80 anos, continuo mais pacifista do que eu era naquele tempo. E nós não queremos paz, nós não queremos contencioso, o que nós queremos é fazer com que os nossos países possam progredir. Por isso, nós também queremos dizer ao mundo que nós somos países soberanos. Não aceitamos intromissão de quem quer que seja nas nossas decisões soberanas, do jeito que nós cuidamos do nosso povo, e nós defendemos o multilateralismo porque foi o sistema que, depois da Segunda Guerra Mundial, permitiu que o mundo chegasse a um estado de harmonia que está sendo deformado hoje com o surgimento do extremismo. Esta reunião de hoje, ela vai simbolizar o fortalecimento da relação Índia e Brasil. Não são dois qualquer países, são dois países grandes, dois países que se respeitam e dois países que querem, pura e simplesmente, cuidar da melhoria da qualidade de vida do povo indiano e do povo brasileiro. E aí nós queremos compartilhar aquilo que nós sabemos fazer com o povo indiano e queremos que o primeiro-ministro ainda compartilhe com o Brasil aquilo que eles têm mais expertise do que nós. Porque somente assim a nossa economia vai crescer e somente assim a gente vai dizer ao mundo que nós não queremos uma segunda guerra fria. Nós queremos um comércio livre, nós queremos um multilateralismo, nós queremos mais democracia e nós queremos mais respeito à soberania.
Prime Minister Modi suffered a terrorist attack in India recently. I even thought he would not come to the BRICS, but he did. And in addition to agreeing to come to the BRICS, he agreed to make this state visit. Therefore, I want to publicly, here, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, thank you very much for your understanding of the importance of the BRICS. Thank you very much for your participation. And I want to tell you that India has grown a little more in my heart. Rest assured that when you leave here to return, you will even have some Minas Gerais cheese. There will even be some Minas cheese that I ask some people to bring so that you can be well fed with Brazilian cheese on your way back to India. And I want you to be sure that you have left here in Brazil not only a happy president, a joyful president who is your friend, but you have left the Brazilian people happy to know that we have many partners in the world and that India today is a strategic partner. Thank you, Prime Minister. At this moment, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, will speak.
Your Excellency, मेरे परम मित्र राष्ट्रपति लूला, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार, बोआ तार्ज। रियो और ब्राजीलिया में हमारे गर्मजोशी भरे स्वागत के लिए मैं राष्ट्रपति लूला का, मेरे मित्र का हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। अमेजन की प्राकृतिक सुंदरता और आपकी आत्मीयता दोनों ने हमें मंत्रमुग्ध कर दिया है। आज राष्ट्रपति जी द्वारा मुझे ब्राजील के सर्वोच्च राष्ट्रीय सम्मान से विभूषित किया जाना मेरे लिए ही नहीं बल्कि 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों के लिए भी अत्यंत गर्व और भावुकता का पल है। मैं इसके लिए उनका, ब्राजील सरकार और ब्राजील के लोगों का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, मेरे मित्र राष्ट्रपति लूला भारत और ब्राजील स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के चीफ आर्किटेक्ट हैं। हमारे संबंधों को प्रगाढ़ करने में उनकी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका रही है। मुझे उनके साथ हर मुलाकात में दोनों देशों के लोगों की समृद्धि और कल्याण के लिए काम करने की ऊर्जा मिली है। मैं इस सम्मान को भारत के प्रति उनकी गहरी प्रतिबद्धता और हमारी अटूट मित्रता को समर्पित करता हूं। फ्रेंड, आज की चर्चाओं में हमने हर क्षेत्र में सहयोग को सुदृढ़ करने पर बात की। हमने आने वाले 5 वर्षों में द्विपक्षीय व्यापार को $20 बिलियन तक ले जाने का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है। फुटबॉल ब्राजील का जुनून है। क्रिकेट भारत के लोगों का पैशन। बॉल बाउंड्री के पार करे या गोल में डाले, जब दोनों एक ही टीम में हो तो 20 बिलियन की साझेदारी कठिन नहीं है। हम मिलकर भारत मर्कोसुर प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट के विस्तार पर भी काम करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में हमारा सहयोग निरंतर बढ़ रहा है। पर्यावरण और क्लीन एनर्जी दोनों देशों की मुख्य प्राथमिकता है। इस क्षेत्र में सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए आज जो समझौता किया गया है उससे हमारे ग्रीन गोल्स को नई दिशा और गति मिलेगी। इस वर्ष ब्राजील में होने जा रही COP30 बैठक के लिए मैं राष्ट्रपति लूला को शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। फ्रेंड, रक्षा के क्षेत्र में बढ़ता सहयोग हमारे गहरी आपसी विश्वास का प्रतीक है। हम अपने रक्षा उद्योगों को आपस में जोड़ने के प्रयास जारी रखेंगे। आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और सुपर कंप्यूटर में हमारा सहयोग बढ़ रहा है। यह समावेशी विकास और ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक इनोवेशन की हमारी एक जैसी सोच का प्रमाण है। ब्राजील में यूपीआई के एडॉप्शन पर भी दोनों पक्ष मिलकर काम कर रहे हैं। हमें डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और स्पेस जैसे क्षेत्रों में भारत का सफल अनुभव ब्राजील के साथ साझा करने में खुशी होगी। कृषि और पशुपालन क्षेत्र में हमारा सहयोग दशकों पुराना है। अब हम एग्रीकल्चरल रिसर्च और फूड प्रोसेसिंग पर भी मिलकर काम करेंगे। स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में भी हम अपना विन विन सहयोग बढ़ा रहे हैं। हमने ब्राजील में आयुर्वेद और ट्रेडिशनल मेडिसिन के विस्तार पर बल दिया। फ्रेंड, पीपल टू पीपल टाइज हमारे संबंधों का महत्वपूर्ण स्तंभ है। दोनों देशों में स्पोर्ट्स में गहरी रुचि भी हमें आपस में जोड़ती है। हम चाहते हैं कि बिना वीजा काउंटर की लंबी लाइन के भारत और ब्राजील के संबंध कार्निवल जितने रंगीन हो, फुटबॉल जितने जोशीले और सांबा की तरह दिलों को जोड़ते जाएं। इसी भावना से हम दोनों देशों के लोगों को, विशेष रूप से टूरिस्ट, स्टूडेंट्स, स्पोर्ट्स पर्सन्स और बिजनेसमैन के बीच संपर्क सुगम बनाने के लिए प्रयास करेंगे। फ्रेंड, वैश्विक स्तर पर भारत और ब्राजील ने सदैव करीबी समन्वय के साथ काम किया है। दो बड़े लोकतांत्रिक देशों के रूप में हमारा सहयोग न केवल ग्लोबल साउथ बल्कि पूरी मानवता के लिए प्रासंगिक है। हम मानते हैं कि ग्लोबल साउथ की चिंताओं और प्राथमिकताओं को वैश्विक मंचों पर रखना हमारा नैतिक दायित्व है। आज जब विश्व तनाव और अनिश्चितता के दौर से गुजर रहा है, मेरे मित्र ने बड़े विस्तार से बताया है, मैं इसको रिपीट नहीं कर रहा हूं। भारत ब्राजील की यह साझेदारी स्थिरता और संतुलन का एक अहम स्तंभ है। हम एकमत है कि सभी विवादों का समाधान डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी के माध्यम से होना चाहिए। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई पर हमारी सोच समान है। जीरो टॉलरेंस एंड जीरो डबल स्टैंडर्ड्स हमारा स्पष्ट मत है कि आतंकवाद पर दोहरे मापदंडों का कोई स्थान नहीं है। हम आतंकवाद और आतंकवाद के समर्थकों का कठोर विरोध करते हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, एक बार फिर इस सर्वोच्च राष्ट्रीय सम्मान के लिए और आपकी मित्रता के लिए मैं 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की ओर से आपका बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। मैं आपको भारत यात्रा करने का निमंत्रण भी देता हूं। धन्यवाद। मुइतो ओब्रिगादो।
Senhoras e senhores, está encerrada esta cerimônia.